So far in 2023, between the months of January and the end of February, there were 8 near misses, or should I say near collisions, that could have resulted in a number of fatalities not seen since 2 747 jumbo jets collided on the runway in Tenerife in 1977, which sadly took the lives of 583 people. And if that number of near-airport collisions sounds like a lot, that's because it is. According to a recent Bloomberg report citing the FAA and the NTSB, the number of near-ground airport collisions in just the first 2 months of 2023 is almost double that of the entire annual average over the past 5 years since 2018. And if you think that's unacceptable, especially in the US, you're right. It is inexcusable. But the burning question is, why is it happening? Well, I'm going to tell you why. And I'm also going to tell you, unfortunately, why it's probably not going to get any better anytime soon. That's next on Maximus. Greetings everybody, Maximus here. On February 4th of this year, in a thick fog, a landing FedEx Boeing 767 cargo jet that was cleared by ATC to land, and a Southwest Boeing 737 taking off on the same runway, which was officially given clearance to take off at the same time that the 767 was landing, nearly collided on the runway, coming within just 100 feet of each other. I'm sure most, if not all of you, have seen a version of this video by now. Thankfully, the FedEx pilot was paying attention and began his go-around even before ATC noticed. According to Bloomberg News of the near miss, Senior Vice President for Legislative and Regulatory Policy at the Airlines for America Trade Group, jeez, that's a mouthful. Anyway, she told U.S. House lawmakers at a hearing on March 23rd that Austin International Airport is the fastest growing airport in the country, and it needs to have the proper surveillance technology on the airport that could have avoided the mishap. Yet in 2023, Austin International does not have the much needed technology at their airport. However, before the Austin incident, back on January 13th of this year, JFK International Airport, which has this technology, it displayed how effective the much-needed technology can be. When an American Airlines jet carrying 149 people taxied across a runway where a Delta Airlines plane with 159 on board was accelerating for takeoff. When an alert sounded in the control tower, the Delta pilots were told to abort their takeoff. They never got closer than 1,400 feet from the other plane. And yet, in another example that occurred last year on the night of April 30th, 2022, pilots landing a loaded Delta A321 at Bradley International Airport in Connecticut had to rely on their own eyes in the dark of night when just before landing they saw a truck on the runway. But by the time they saw it, it was too late to go around. Thankfully, after landing, the pilots hit the brakes on the plane just in time to stop within 150 feet of the truck. And that happened because Bradley International Airport safety system failed in November of 2021 and wasn't repaired until July of 2022. Those are just a few examples of near-fatal collisions at America's danger-plagued airports just this year alone. So then what's going on and why is it happening? Well, that's because, as Adam Levin of Bloomberg News reports, that a crucial safety system that major U.S. airports rely on to avoid potentially fatal collisions is aging and plagued by outages that have left passengers' lives at risk, at times up to several months and even longer in some cases. But what's worse is that at some airports this technology has never been installed. According to government data and the president of the union who represents the air traffic controllers, the technology, which tracks vehicles on or near runways to alert controllers before impending crashes, often uses decades-old Cold War-era radar equipment for which spare parts are difficult, if not impossible, to find. He said having technology at all major U.S. airports to keep track of ground traffic is vitally important, especially now at a time when runway safety incursions has skyrocketed to dangerous levels in 2023. Just in the first 2 months of this year alone, there have been at least 8 incidents involving airliners that aviation regulators ranked as severe or that prompted probes by U.S. accident investigators. That's almost double the average for each full year since 2018. While none of these near collisions have been directly linked to an outage of airport surface detection equipment called Model X, or ASDEX, which stands for Airport Surface Detection System Model X. But when these systems are down for repair or failure, gaps in service can leave the aviation system vulnerable. What's worse is that presently there are no clear alternatives available to replace this antiquated equipment. However, advocates are still pushing to add more of the existing systems, which are highly effective when functioning properly, to more landing strips after some of the most serious incidents happened at airports without the technology. These airports have no protection at all, and when you buy your ticket, they don't include that vital information either. Jeff Guzzetti, former head of accident investigations at the FAA, says, "These systems are the last line of defense in preventing a massive collision between two airliners." He added that I'm shocked that it hasn't been put in more airports. 3 people familiar with the runway safety systems who asked to remain anonymous, because until now this information hasn't been made public, told Bloomberg that these systems have suffered multiple failures in recent years. At Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, the 3rd busiest airport in the U.S. by number of flights, the ASDEX system was out of service for at least 6 days last May and June. These sources also reported that at Chicago O'Hare, an outage last July lasted as long as a week, and at Los Angeles International Airport there were 39 separate failures. That meant the system was unavailable for a total of 160 days from 2016 through 2018. But the Bloomberg article said that the FAA said in a statement that it will keep ASDEX and a similar runway safety system operating, but has been looking for newer technologies. In March, the FAA held a safety summit where it called on the aviation industry to develop new options that could either replace ASDEX or add protections at new airports. However, the FAA defended the system's overall reliability, saying it functions almost 99% of the time, and that airports where it's located cover the majority of U.S. commercial flights. Additionally, the FAA says it has taken multiple other measures such as improved runway markings and training to lower risks. ASDEX and its companion system, referred to as the Airport Surface Surveillance Capability, employ a combination of radar and global positioning technology to detect ground-based vehicles such as trucks. When aircraft come dangerously close to colliding with these vehicles, the system triggers an alarm in the air traffic control towers, alerting controllers to inform pilots and ground operators of the impending hazard. Additionally, the data gathered by the system is utilized by a separate runway safety feature that incorporates lights installed at 20 airports throughout the United States, warning pilots and vehicle drivers to stay clear of occupied runways. The primary systems, which are currently operational at 43 major airports in the United States, were initially viewed as a significant safety enhancement intended to mitigate the risk of numerous fatal accidents. However, the outdated technology dating back to the 1980s is now susceptible to frequent malfunctions, prompting industry advocates to urge the FAA to both extend its deployment to additional airports and modernize it. But going back as far as the year 2000, the National Transportation Safety Board has been urging the expansion of this safety system to all commercial airports. But shockingly, Rich Santa, president of the National Air Traffic Controllers Association Union, says there are no spare parts in the event of a radar failure. But we need funding for sustainment of existing technologies as well as funding for new systems and new technologies. A U.S. division of Saab Aerospace is the current manufacturer of ASDEX, but didn't supply its older radars, which often date as far back as many as 40 years. But Dave Spiro, president of the Professional Aviation Safety Specialists Union that represents about 7,000 technicians at the FAA, said, "Keeping those heavy, outdated radars operating is a growing challenge, with multiple aging technology systems operated by the FAA. However, there are potentially better and cheaper alternatives. ASDEX is expensive, which is part of the reason it wasn't installed at every airport when it was developed. It cost $550 million to install at the first 35 airports, according to a 2007 NTSB report. Still, the FAA has been looking into other technologies to track planes and vehicles on the ground, including the GPS systems they already use for planes in the air. But some experts argue that the ground radar should still be used as an additional backup safety net. So if you're like me and you've been wondering why the U.S. has been experiencing so many near misses or near hits as the case may be, now you know. But I do want to add this disclaimer. Even though Europe hasn't been experiencing similar runway excursions, I did a lot of research to find out what systems they use in Europe, and I couldn't find any examples that they use different systems at their airports than they do here in the U.S. So they may be using the same systems as well, but I'm not sure. So if you're in the European aviation industry and you know, please let me know down below. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode. So what do you think? Tell me about it. And as always, before you fly off, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and ring the bell. Ringing that bell, click that button. That's important so you can be notified whenever we release new content. And remember, leave the rubber on the runway and your troubles on the ground. And I will see you next time in the air. Yeah, this is Maximus.